Let's go live now to the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns speaking.
As you can see, we're joined by a large number of people. We'll try and get through this media conference as quickly as we can, get to questions that you may have about the flood response. The big message we want to send this morning, having spoken to Commissioner Wassing as well as New South Wales Police, is that this emergency is not over. And it's not over for the following reasons. The rivers are full. The rain is continuing and expected to keep falling in the days ahead, and wind conditions are very high and extreme, particularly on the coast, particularly in the Byron Shire, right up to the Queensland border. So for those three reasons, it's crucially important that the public not dismiss this weather event as something that's already passed. It really doesn't matter to us whether it's been downgraded from a tropical cyclone to a weather event or whether it's still a tropical cyclone. The effect on the Northern Rivers communities and lower down into the Coffs area is still the same for thousands and thousands of families. That's a really important point. This can't be just trivialised or put to one side. The next 24 hours will be crucially important as we look to see what the weather event will do to these communities. I also want to make it clear that the SES have been working incredibly hard over the last 48 hours, as have police and other emergency services, but there's been 29 flood rescues across the Northern Rivers from different SES volunteer brigades. This I think speaks to the enormous bravery, the skill and dedication of many SES individuals and crews and teams. There's been 40 flood rescue crews that have been pre-positioned into the Northern Rivers, and as you can see, they were needed. There's also, of course, very sadly, a man missing in the Dorrigo region, and that's now a search mission in that upper Coffs Harbour region. We're obviously concerned about that, but we need to make it clear that the message hasn't deviated, particularly as we move through to the flood part of this natural disaster, and that is never drive through floodwaters, never put yourself in danger. It's the most common way of people losing their lives during these flooding events. You risk your own life, a passenger in your car, a family member, and also SES and police officials who will be sent in to try and rescue you in the event that you're in difficult situations. And they'll always try, but we don't want to put them in harm's way. We're also going to speak today with Mal Lanyon about the recovery phase of this cyclone, and it's important that the public are aware that the planning is already going out, even though we're still in the ready stage, the response stage. We're still in the response stage, but we need to make sure that we're in the recovery. We're preparing for the recovery stage as well. And with that in mind, Mal will speak about appointing Scott Tanner as the recovery coordinator for Cyclone Alfred. That's incredibly important because the big message from Janelle and Steve and Kevin Hogan and many of the civic leaders in the Northern Rivers is that the recovery phase was too slow following the 2022 floods. We want to make sure that we're Johnny on the spot, that we can roll out urgent assistance where it's needed and get Lismore and Tweed and surrounding areas right down to Coffs Harbour back on their feet as soon as possible. The rainfalls have been extreme over the last 24 hours, where we've seen 120 mils in places like Dorrigo. We've also seen a lot of rainfall in this catchment, in the Northern Rivers catchment, particularly up in the Tweed. This is why the rivers are full, and the tributaries and rivers flowing into the Wilson is still a major concern for the SES and the New South Wales government. Look, last thing I'll say is thanks to the thousands of volunteers and emergency service workers who put their own lives at risk to serve the community, to help complete strangers because they believe in public service. They've got a strong civic duty where I'm a huge debt of gratitude. And even though we're in the midst of this flood response, we can't minimise their incredible dedication, particularly over the last week. Thanks to everybody's cooperation thus far, we still need you to listen and act when it comes to emergency broadcasts, particularly from the SES. So, download the Hazards Near Me app, call the SES number if you're in trouble, call 000 if it's a life-saving emergency, and of course at all times follow the warnings, recommendations and alerts from the SES as we move through Cyclone Alfred.